Please make sure everybody is on mute. I don't want you guys saying something. We've had a few outbursts in here lately. Make sure we're all on mute. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of our open forum. We are going over these. It is important that you guys get started on this. It was not supposed to happen until the 17th, as we all know. That is when it officially happens. But so many things have already been changed slowly and incrementally by the MLS that you guys have to start using these forms now. You have to start, especially with the you technically don't have to do the buyer brokerage agreement thing now. We want you to go ahead and start doing that. But confirming, since they've taken it off of MLS, we need to confirm our commission now, our buyer side commission. And you're going to have buyers asking you to put it in writing, and you're going to be asking them to put it in writing. Hopefully you guys are already doing that since they took it off there if you're showing properties right now. So let's go through some of these. I'm going to start with the pre-touring agreement. This is kind of like if you're not strong enough or you don't feel like your relationship is strong enough to use the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, which we guys, well, I'm not going to go over these forms line by line. We've already done this. I'm only going to go over a couple of them line by line, the short ones, because they're new, new ideas, like this pre-touring agreement. The exclusive buyer brokerage agreement is very similar to the one we've been supposedly using for years. You guys haven't been using it very often, but you were supposed to. I've been preaching to you for 9.5 years to use the buyer brokerage agreement because it protects you. Well, now, if you haven't been in our trainings lately, it is even more protective than it's ever been. We had the attorney go through it and explain that. A couple of differences where it's way more enforceable and it's very ironclad now. The retainers that you get are non-refundable and can be released to you immediately. They pay us and we pay you. We can go ahead and pay you out because it's your money if they pay a retainer. A couple of other things where a very strong protection period after for any homes that you showed them during that time. So let's go on though with this. So this is a property pre-touring agreement. This is going to be your buyer brokerage agreement light, I'll call it. This is if somebody just called you and they want to see a property. Okay. Not one that you have listed. This is somebody else's property, somebody else's listing, and they want to see this. So we've already put in this. These are your forms to use, guys. They're fillable PDFs, as you can see by the blue marks in here. I can fill them, right? So these are fillable PDFs for your own computer. So consumers, John and Susie, it doesn't matter. All right. For how many ever days? If you're only going to show them houses this weekend, maybe they want to see new construction this weekend. Maybe they want to see whatever, and you're going to show them a couple of houses. They want to see 3 or 4 that you've sent to them. You can, to answer your questions. The reason I called this meeting, guys, I'm getting so many questions. Even after all the trainings and stuff that we've done, I know you guys can't be at all of them. They all are recorded and put on YouTube, but I know you can't be at all of them. So I'm still getting a lot of questions. And it's okay. I know there are questions I've answered before, but not everybody hears every question, so it's fine. Do you have to have an agreement to send them properties, auto emails from MLS, auto searches on MLS? Absolutely not. No, only to show a home. Only if you're going to show them a home. If you're going to show them one on video, you should have one. Okay. Just let them know that your broker requires it. The settlement requires it, but your broker requires it before you show them anything aside from what's out there on MLS. You can send them MLS stuff, but you cannot show them anything without an agreement. Okay. Consumers, for how many ever days? Let's say we're going to show properties for the next 3 days this weekend. Let's do that. You put a 3 in there. You can have a set amount due at closing. Say, look, guys, you guys have always done this. You always call me and say, what should I do if I'm just doing a partial services agreement on a listing, or I'm just going to, they're going to sell it to their tenant. They just want me to do the contract and walk them through it. I say whatever they'll pay you. Whatever, depends on how good friends you are. You can do it for $500 or $1,500 or $2,500. Depends on what it is. To not do a full service listing or a full service transaction. So you can do the same thing here with a flat fee due at closing. Look, guys, I'll show you houses this weekend, and you'll pay me $10,000 if you buy one, or whatever it is. You can also do on this. You can also do a non-refundable retainer of $500 just for showing you properties this weekend. I'm just making that up. Be whatever you want, as long as they'll agree to it. Okay. Because this is not bind them to work with you at all. it says right here to the buyer, if you wish to work with broker to purchase a property, broker may ask you to sign a separate agreement detailing the party's responsibilities during the sale. You absolutely will. And what you do is you give it to them when you give them the offer to sign. Let's say they're going to make an offer for $400,000 for 123 Oak Street. You send your buyer brokerage agreement with that and make them sign it on the same signature package. Okay. A listing or a seller or listing broker, guys, get this in your mind too. Sometimes the seller is going to be paying the buyer's broker directly, and sometimes it's going to be like it always has been, where the listing broker technically pays the buyer's broker. Okay. A seller or listing broker may agree to pay some or all of the above compensation. If a seller or listing broker agrees to pay broker for services broker performs for you, broker will deduce the amount you owe accordingly. So if you put up here 3%, okay, you check that box and you put 3% plus your 350 for us or whatever you want to do. If you put that and you go and they want to buy a house that offers 2.5%, they're saying you're not making 5.5%. You're going to take the 2.5 out of the 3, just like we've always done. Nothing different. They're just explaining that to the buyer. And it's not easy to explain. So they did okay, I think, on the wording here. If you choose a property already listed by broker, seller may pay broker for services broker performs for seller, and you will not be responsible for this compensation. That is for if you have a 6% listing or a 5% listing and you get both sides, you don't have to come out of pocket they don't have to come out of pocket another 3% on top of the 5 you're already making. Okay. It's the same way the rules have always been. This is just explaining it. Not great. So in all of our forms, we have added this. This is part of the reason that you have a FRI form for this. By selecting this box, customer request to be shown only listed properties for which seller is offering buyer brokerage compensation. This is for your buyers who cannot afford to come out of pocket. And this way you do not have to show them properties where the listing agent or the seller is not offering compensation. Okay. So this is if the buyer chooses that, they will select that box. Everybody understand that? All right. That is going to save you guys any kind of liability from doing that. What happened to my thing there? Okay. This is going to save you guys any kind of liability from not showing property. Excuse me. Yes, Malvis.
So Ryan, that form, the property pre-touring agreement, where you have that by selecting this box, that would be the appropriate one for the buyers that are using, for example, down payment assistance programs or Hometown for Hero programs, to where they don't have enough money or money at all to pay.
Right. And so, but there's also, there's also leeway with that. So if I call Christina on a listing and Christina says, no, the seller's not offering, they decided not to offer buyer brokerage compensation. I'm going to ask Christina, I'm going to say, what do you think they would do? Would they do any concessions? Because otherwise my buyer can't buy it. And she'll say yes or no, right? Or she'll say, I don't know. Well, let's see. So in that case, I have to make a decision whether or not I want to waste the buyer's time and my time and everybody's time by going to look at this listing if we don't think that they're going to offer compensation, if my buyer can't afford to pay me separately. Right? So that's how that works. But yes, you're on the right track. Exactly. If my buyer can't afford it to come out of pocket for it, obviously, then we wouldn't. But we can always ask for concession.
Because right now I have a buyer that will be potentially looking, but he is approved for the Hometown for Heroes program. He doesn't have enough money. I know he cannot pay me. Right. So I would need to use this form, the pre-touring agreement, and have him understand that I will only show him properties that the sellers is willing to pay me.
We have it also on our buyer brokerage agreement.
On the buyer broker? Okay.
It's on there as well. It's on all of our forms.
Okay.
So any of these forms you're going to see, it's on there. I'll share this one as well. I don't know why I'm sharing my dad for a second.
I'm printing them out and making myself a note.
Okay.
On the top, so that I can remember, because there's so many forms. But exclusive.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get you guys out of the confusion for it. So I'm going to show you. I've actually rearranged them on the list as well, kind of in the order that you'll need them. So this is the ideal form, guys. This is the ideal form. If you can get it, if you get a regular buyer, this is what you're going to have them sign. This is what everybody's asking them to sign for the most part. This is what your competition is asking them to sign. This is the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. Okay. We have put on here too, on the last page, by the additional terms, by selecting this box, consumer requests to show only listed properties which seller or listing broker or seller is offering compensation. Okay. So they can check that box there too.
So Ryan, I'm sorry, by using that form is exclusively for compensation. I have to use that form, and then I also have to use the pre-touring form.
No. Either or. But if you use the pre-touring form, then you'll want to use this one with the contract. Pre-touring form is like a light agreement. It's like the ones that barely want to meet with you, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know, and I just want to see one property. Do we really have to do, Then okay, fine. We'll do just a pre-touring agreement for now."
Okay.
All right. So you guys have had that. You've already told me that, these people aren't going to, some of you guys are kind of weak salespeople, and you're like, these people aren't going to want to sign this, and blah, blah, blah. And so, okay, well, I've got a pre-touring agreement. It's only good for, however many days we make it good for, a couple of days. And the pre-touring agreement does not have a protection period after it or anything else. It's very light and it does not protect you very much. But if you're weak and you can't get them to sign something, or if they said, I just want to see this one property, I'm not want to sign. I refuse to sign with anybody. I just want to see this one property. Then you can use that. But if they show that one, it does not protect you. So you're better off doing a buyer brokerage agreement for 1 day with no protection period.
I might as well just do that form. It seems like this form is better to use for both things. To show them properties and to protect yourself, and for the only showing them properties if they are not able to pay you.
Well, that's all. Yeah. Yes. Well, they all do that, but yes, this is the one that makes sure you get paid. Now, there's a protection period on here. I'm sorry, I'm going up and down. I'm looking for the protection period, and you just put 0 days. Okay, for the protection period. Otherwise, they still have to pay you for the one they actually no, it's only good for that long. So protection period. If within blank days after termination, the consumer contracts to acquire any property. So no, you can leave it at 30 days. You can leave it 30 days because it's only the ones that you showed them, but you're making the agreement for 1 day. So if they only want to see properties this weekend, I prefer that you're much more protected if you use this one and just put the dates. We'll begin on today. What is today? The 9th.
The 9th.
The 9th, August 9th, and we'll terminate 11:59 on Sunday, the 11th. Okay. And we're just going to look at properties this weekend. And if they contract any of them in the next 30 days, they still owe me, even though they're not bound to me anymore. They can go work with another broker on Monday.
But you can make that, Ryan, from today through for the next 3 months too.
Well, that's the idea. To help them buy a house. But I'm just saying, I'm talking about the skittish ones who only want to look at properties this weekend.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. No, the idea is to do it for 3 months or 6 months or something. That's the whole idea until they find a house.
Yes.
But 3 months should be good to find a house. But there you go. I hope I answered those questions. Apparently we have something going on in the chat that needs my attention. Okay. Good morning. Just confirm this a form applied to showing land only. What are we talking about? The pre-touring form? No, it's houses. It's everything. It's everything. Pre-touring is for just looking at properties, but it's not binding. It doesn't protect you guys very well. So let's look back at the, I want to take you guys through the list. I'm sorry. Christina.
Okay, couple quick questions. So is it there's 3 forms, right? The pre-touring, the showing agreement, and the buyer broker?
Those are 3. Yes, thank you for that group that you just did is a group of 3 that all do the similar things. Yes.
And pre-touring is the least protective for us. Then it would be showing agreement. Then it would be buyer broker.
Yes, agreement. I put them in here. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Hold on. I'm going to take you to my. Here we go. They are. I have moved these into groups. Michaela just put them in there as she did them. I've moved them into groups of what they're good for. So buyer brokerage agreement, the strongest. Showing agreement, second strongest. Pre-touring agreement, the weakest. Okay. And then I did modification to those buyer brokerage or showing agreement here because they're for those three. Then I did, we're going to go through these. Don't worry about it. Compensation agreement, modification and compensation agreement from seller's broker to buyer's broker, because that will be more common than the other one. Compensation agreement, seller to buyer broker, modification agreement for that. And then the compensation disclosure statement, which is going to be not used after about 6 months from now. What was your question? I appreciate, thank you for grouping those. Now, what was your question?
My other question, so the compensation disclosure, that's something that we need to send to all existing listing clients to let them know about the changes and confirm.
Any listing that's not under contract, or if it comes back out from under contract, comes back on market.
Okay, so if I
Okay.
have a pending deal, I don't have to send that. But
Right,
that-
because what it says is you can negotiate your commission. Brokerage compensation is not set by law. Well, it's not if they're under contract. They're paying what they promised to pay.
Okay, so if I have, like, for example, if I have one that has an MLS flavor, but it's signed, but it's not active, I need to also send that to them as well. Anything that's not pending that is a listing.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You bet. Those of you who missed the meeting on Wednesday, we discussed that. This is all this does is discloses the whole thing that you need to see here is what's in. I hope you guys can see that well enough. Let me blow it up and share it.
We can see it.
Okay. All it says is notice to buyer, seller, owner, brokerage compensation is not set by law and is fully negotiable.
Brian, in that form, on the blank that has buyer, seller, owner, we just put the name of the sellers in there.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Whoever it is. Yeah. Whoever
Okay.
your client is. Yep.
And they don't sign it. We just email it.
They don't sign it. You just do it. And then you confirm down here that you did it on a date by email. And the form that we have here is clickable.
And we have uploaded into our transaction desk under that listing in the pipeline.
Pipeline, not transaction desk, but pipeline.
Yeah, yeah.
Ryan, I have to do this even for all the commercial properties?
No,
Even leasing?
if they're only off their own MLS.
Okay, only off the MLS. And
Yes,
what
ma'am.
about suppose like LoopNet and all these other
No,
commercial?
LoopNet is
So
not.
just get it from
of
the
the settlement.
listing agent, the compensation, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's-
but you've always done that in commercial. What's your co-broke and give it to
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. I've
Right?
always done, but that suffice.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if you give a commercial broker one of these forms, they're gonna be like, "What is this?" Just have
Yeah.
them, and then, but commercial, we've always put it in the contract,
Yeah,
so you can
yeah.
put it in the contract here too.
Yes, yes.
Now, you guys, we can, just so you know, you can put your. So this is something I want to explain to you, and this is coming from the FAR attorney. You can put your compensation in the contract now. You can say there's a concession to the buyer in the amount of 3% or whatever toward buyer brokerage compensation. Before you didn't do that because that's agreement between the buyer and the seller, and they could theoretically negotiate you out of a commission, right? But now they cannot do that because they owe you, because you're using a buyer brokerage agreement and the seller already has a listing agreement, of course. Every party is owed, so they cannot, all they can negotiate is how they're going to pay you. So they could never, before you did not want to put your commission in the contract in a residential one because the MLS guaranteed your commission. Now the MLS doesn't guarantee your commission, but you have agreements, right, in writing that are legally binding. So they cannot negotiate you out of a commission. Vivian.
So I just want to be clear as far as our colleagues in the office are concerned. Are you presenting this right out of the gate now, or are you still sending listings and schmoozing people, for lack of a better word?
Am I doing, what do you mean? Are we sending what right out of the gate?
Just letting them know right out of the gate right now. It's a week away anyway.
Oh, no, we're doing this. We're doing this because people are already doing it.
Right.
Because our commissions our compensation box is already off the MLS. We don't know if you go, if a property hits your hot sheet today, you don't know what they're offering for commission.
Right.
You really don't. So you have to contact Debbie about her listing and say, what kind of lockbox are you using over there now? and what is your compensation you're offering the buyer's broker? And she'll say, we're offering 2.5%, and whatever the puck situation is, I might need a 1-day pass.
If
So
it's an off-market, this is my second point. If it's an off-market property that I happen to match a buyer with, I'm not restricted in any way, right? I can negotiate on both sides.
Yeah, use the good old-fashioned compensation agreement.
Okay.
That's for FSBOs, guys. We're still, if it's not on the MLS, use the good old-fashioned compensation agreement. You guys know what that is. If you've ever done a FSBO, you get that to the seller before you get them a contract, because they will negotiate you out of commission. And you're going to have something with your buyer already. So your buyer is already going to owe you 3%. If you only want to get 4% or whatever, have the seller pay the other 1% or whatever it is, right? Debbie.
Okay, I just want to clarify, if we use this pre-tour form, that's in a very casual relationship, we don't really know them, we may be meeting them for the first time, we may show them property. But when I go to write the contract, I also need to write a formal exclusive buyer broker agreement and attach it to the contract. Is that correct? Yes,
and I want to go through this. That's a great question. I want to show it to you again too, if you don't mind. Oh, why am I not sharing this? Hold on 1 second. I want to show it to you again, because right under the compensation, if you wish to work with broker to purchase a property, broker may ask you to sign a separate agreement detailing the party's responsibilities during the sale. That is also good. So there's no property listed here. There's nothing here that lists that. So a seller or listing broker may agree to pay somewhere. Okay. So if you wish to work, this is such a weak agreement. It says if you wish to work with a broker to purchase a property, it says if you look at the compensation, if you wish. That is the weakest language. The word wish belongs nowhere in a legal document, if you ask me. You wish for anything. If you wish to work with broker to purchase property, broker shows you, broker's compensation for services, broker advises you will be as follows. That means you can show me a property and I can decide to buy it, and I don't wish to work with you. So absolutely, before I make an offer, they're signing something stronger. Does that make sense, Debbie? Does that answer your question?
Yes, I knew that was the case, but I just wanted to clarify for who was it, Marilyn, and because she was asking, can I use this one, or this one? And I want to make sure everybody knows, if you do a pre-tour agreement, when you write a contract, you have to have a buyer broker agreement to be safe. But thanks for answering.
I'm just not going to use that one, period. I am just not using that one at all. I'm using my buyer broker agreement, and if they don't have money, I will ask them up front, can you pay me? If they say no, then we're checking that box, and I will only show them property that will pay me. That way I'm protected, they're protected, and there's no confusion, because there's no, if that doesn't have, Ryan, any protection for the realtors, why use it?
I agree. That's just for you weak people who can't get them to sign anything if you're worried about it. But because some people don't like it, some people are going to be skittish about it. I get that. Showing agreement. This is kind of the middle of the road. This is a really good one. You can put as many properties here as you want. Same thing. They don't want to be shown properties where unless the seller is offering buyer brokerage compensation. So this is it. This is a pretty strong agreement. But it's got a place for a retainer. You guys may or may not have noticed, I got a question about this. All retainers are non-refundable now. And I think this retainer is in addition to any compensation. So it does not also apply to the 3%. So it's on top of the 3%. But that is not bad for if you're showing properties this weekend. This is a great way to do this and say a non-refundable retainer fee of $500 for showing properties this weekend, because I don't trust you to work with me. And there you go. Sunaina, you have a question?
Ryan, I just saw on this new construction for agent compensation, they're saying contact the builder. So with the new homes, you have to get it in writing from the builders that what they're giving you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So you just contact the builder sales
just like you would
representative.
any other listing. If you're seeing that in MLS, they also cannot say 3%. They can say it on their advertisements, on their websites, or their social media posts, just like you guys can.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
You bet. But it's great to contact them anyway. You got to register your people. You got to do all that stuff.
Yeah, all that is involved. Yeah, okay,
All right, Christina.
thank you.
Thank you. You're on mute, Christina.
I think you may have answered, in terms of compensation agreements, like, you know, for FISBOs, we're gonna send them what the compensation agreement is the name of the document.
That's been the document.
Okay. And then, so same thing. And then, if somebody is saying negotiate your commission, like, hey, they're not specifically offering anything, but you can negotiate it. You know, I guess we would send that at the time of the contract, like an agreement for the compensation agreement as well, or we're just writing in the agreement. I think we're sending something as well, right? In terms of if somebody says, hey, 123 Main Street is for sale. I don't have anything predetermined with the seller, but if you wish to negotiate your compensation, you can. So we're sending the contract and the addendum, and then we're also sending a compensation agreement.
A commission agreement, and no, you do this before I would do that before I send anything, because they can just say no. They can negotiate around you if you do that. Let me show
So
you
before
this.
showings,
Yeah, if you have
I
a
feel
physical, you would do it before showing, wouldn't you?
well, not, yeah, but like, you know, in terms of like listing agents, I feel like I don't know how much luck I'm going to have if I, you know,
They've got to tell you before you go. If they said
Right,
no,
but yeah, they'll tell, I'll ask them, but I mean, I don't know what luck I'm going to have with everybody signing something, but like, so you're, you know what I
no, they
mean?
have to. Let me get to that in a second. First, I want to show you guys the old commission. I called it a compensation. It's a commission agreement. This is old school. This one was done. It hasn't been revised since May of 2014. So this is the old school commission agreement you guys have always used for FISBOs. Okay. So before I show mean old Joe Henry's house, who doesn't want to pay anybody anything, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to tell him, if I bring this buyer, you're going to pay me 3%, right? And he's going to say, well, we'll see what they offer. Anyway, this is what you got to get him to sign before he'll do it. And you can make it variable, et cetera, like 3% if they pay full price, 2.5% if it's under, whatever. You guys can do whatever you guys agree to. You can do it for $5 if you want. I don't care, but you just have to have, if you want to fight for your commission, you got to have an agreement signed. All right. So there you go. That's the old school commission agreement. Now let's look at this, which is, we're going to get into compensation agreements. First, let me take Sean, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Ryan. Showing a client multiple properties and each one of them have different co-brokes. What do you put on the buyer's agreement?
Okay, I'm going to cover that real quickly. They're very,
Okay.
very serious about maximum. You put 3%, you cannot make 3% plus a $5,000 bonus from DR Horton. You can only make a maximum of what's on there. It even says it in there in bold writing. You can only make a maximum. So you put 3% on there. You put whatever you think you'll get, 3%. If you get 2.5, then you can make a business decision to take 2.5 instead of 3.
Okay, thanks.
And just like you've been doing, I mean, you know, if you got $1 million customer and you love if they buy that 3% property, but sometimes they buy the 2% property because they love it. That's the business, right? So you could have always, if you had a buyer brokerage agreement, you could have always fought for that extra 1%, and now you can. So guys, this is not all negative. If people think this is all negative, oh, it's going to be so hard. This gives you a lot of rights that you didn't have before to negotiate for your commission and fight for it. You're owed that money now. We were never owed anything before. We were only at the whim of the listing broker and the seller. But now we're owed 3% for doing all this work for the buyer. So go get it. This is not all negative. For those of you who can, this is going to weed out the strong salespeople from the weak salespeople and the strong negotiators from the weak negotiators. And, you know, weak negotiators still going to make a living because you guys are sweet and nice and everybody loves you, but you're going to work harder for less money. So here we go. Let's talk about these forms. You guys see I'm on the modification. Now, compensation agreement, seller's broker to buyer's broker. This is going to be the most common one. So I'm sorry, let me get to Donnie first. Donnie, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question regarding the retainer.
Yes, sir.
When we collect that retainer, is it to be made out to FRI or
You cannot
what do we
take
do with this?
anything. You can't take a steak dinner, Donnie. You've got to come
Okay.
through FRI.
Okay, now do we have to deposit that or
You give
mean,
it to
what do we-
us, we'll turn it around for you.
okay, like do you have an account that we can deposit that in? Or
Just
how
like
do we do that?
What do you normally, you just use a CDA, right? Just
Yes.
mail it to the office, or Michaela can probably give you a deposit, so get you deposit numbers and stuff. But I
Okay,
mean,
just,
that's going to be
okay,
harder.
so,
We're gonna keep 10%, just so you know. So if you get 1,000, we're going to keep 100. You get 500, we're going to keep 50.
I got you.
But because sometimes that'll be the only money y'all will make, and that's fine. But
Right.
we'll never keep more than 350 or 175, whatever program you're on. But we'll keep, that's the same for rentals and same for referrals, guys, just so you know. Those of you who haven't done that, referrals, we don't have a transaction fee, but we keep 10%, but never more than your whatever program you're on. So if you get $1,000, go ahead, Tony.
Oh, no, if they was to give us cash or want to give us cash, that's all they had at the time. Well,
That's not legal.
do we have to, okay.
I never want to hear about that.
So bring your checkbook when they call.
Yes, but you're going to have it in writing, and that's not. I just
Right.
jokingly said I don't want to hear about it, but it's going to have to be in writing because you're getting in trouble, and
Right, exactly.
so it needs to be a check or a money order or wire or anything.
Okay.
All right. We don't have like a Cash App or anything like that, but they're going to, obviously they're going to want it recorded too, that they owed it to you and they paid you. So,
Right.
so that's, and you're going to want that, because if there's ever, Donnie, I know, especially where you are, everybody's friendly and everybody's handshake agreements, but if there's ever a problem, they can say, well, Donnie took $500 from us, and you'll say, all right. So you don't want that. You don't want that problem.
I got you.
All right, let me cover these. Tariq and George, I'm gonna have to hold on just one second. Commission agreement. So let's say now Donnie calls Sean on Sean's listing. Sean's got a listing, and Donnie calls him, and because Sean has no way of letting people know other than his website or his social media of what he's paying. So Donnie calls him, and Donnie says, Sean, I saw your property on 123 Oak Street. What are you offering for buyer's broker compensation? And Sean's going to be, oh, it's 2.5%. And Donnie's going to say, all right, well, let me get that form from you. So here's what we're going to do. I recommend you guys do this. This is the only forms that we didn't fill in either side because we don't know which side will be, seller's broker or buyer's broker. I recommend if you have a listing, go ahead and get these filled out and ready to go so you can shoot them to people, because it's much easier. You don't care if Donnie ever signs this, right? Sean doesn't care if Donnie ever signs it. He's sending it to him. If Donnie doesn't ever do a deal, he doesn't have to sign it. But Donnie has proof that Sean's making the offer. Since Sean's the one making the offer, it's important that Sean does it. So Donnie shouldn't have to fill this out and send it to you. That's what I'm saying. A good listing broker should have this filled out and ready to shoot to anybody who wants to see it. Okay. So go ahead and do that. And definitely with the seller form, which we're about to get to, but let's just go through this. All this says is seller's broker. So in this case, well, it's a bad example because you're both with FRI, but let's say that Donnie is calling on somebody else's listing, a Coldwell Banker listing. All right. Seller's broker, Coldwell Banker, buyer's broker, Florida Realty Investments, property address, buyer's name, which is optional. So you don't have to fill that out. Obviously the listing agent's going to leave it blank, but even Donnie doesn't have to fill it out because Coldwell Banker agent in this case doesn't care who Donnie brings. He's offering 2.5% no matter what. The term, if they say, well, let's just make it for 30 days. Obviously, if it's blank, it's 30 days. That's fine. And then, 2.5% of the gross purchase price of the property. And you won't do any pluses if you're offering stuff. All right. They can do other. 3% if full price, 2.5% if under 390K. Okay. Whatever you guys want there, whatever the seller has, whatever's on your listing agreement in this case, but the seller one will be different. This one's going to be whatever's on your listing agreement is what goes here. Let's not get creative here. It's whatever's on your listing agreement. If you have something creative on your listing agreement, which some of you will, then that's the case. But most of those are going to be the creative ones. We're going to go over this are going to be the ones where seller pays. And we've already had one, believe it or not, already in our office. We've already had a creative one where the seller wants to pay a variable amount. So we had to negotiate that already. If Natalie's on here, it's a nice big listing and they're doing a variable amount. All right, so let's go over that. So this can also be modified. So modification to it is here. Okay. All this does is modify whatever we just agreed to. So if they say, if the seller says, yeah, I'll take that offer that's way under market, but I'm only going to pay them 2.5%. I'm not paying them 3% for that. Then, and if the listing agent, you guys have had this happen a lot of times before, to make a deal work, the listing agent's got to drop, both sides got to drop their commission a little bit. That's the form the listing agent will use to get you to drop your commission from 3 to 2.5 to make the deal work, or whatever it is. Both parties are giving up $500. You can use that for that too. Okay. So that way, both of you agree to give up $500 by signing that form. Because we do not care what you guys do for compensation, because we're a 100% brokerage, you guys can sign for those. Okay. We don't mind. You guys have always asked us, can I do this deal for, it's my best friend. Can I do it for? Yeah, go ahead. I don't care. As long as you pay our fee. So that's all we don't mean to be short on that, but that's all we care about. You guys can work for as much or as little as you want. Okay. So compensation agreement, seller to buyer broker. This is what we had the other day. So let's go to the new listing agreement, which I'm not going to go to right now, but the new listing agreement says that, actually, let's find a listing agreement.
Ryan, can you go over one more time, either now or after you're done with all the forms? Can you go over one more time the seller's form for compensation, not the modification one? So the ones that we currently have to attach now. So for listings that are for listing that have already had a prior listing agreement, and now let's say they want to, when I send this new form, like the compensation is negotiable to my sellers, if they say, hey, Malvis, you know what? Now that I can, I actually changed my mind. I don't want to pay 6% on this listing anymore. Now I want to pay 5%, whatever. Can you go over that form one more time that I would have to get them to sign?
That's just a modification of listing agreement.
Oh,
You've been
okay.
using that for years. That's just okay. All right. Let's look at the new listing agreement real quickly. Back down to number 8, which is compensation. 8 and 9 used to be compensation and then cooperating broker. But let's look at compensation. Okay, this is where you guys have always put 5 or 6%, right? 7% if you're old. 5, 6, 7% there, right? And then number 9 did not have this notice to seller regarding buyer brokers. Then the whole paragraph talking about that. It used to be this: compensation to buyer brokers. Brokerage commissions are not set by law. That is in bold all the way through this deal. Seller approves the following. Seller authorizes broker to offer compensation to broker and the buyer. I'm sorry. Seller authorized broker to offer compensation to buyer's broker in the amount of blank of the purchase price or a flat fee. This is the one that used to have 3 boxes there for cooperating brokers, for one if they were single agent, one if they were transaction broker, one if they were non-rep. So all this is old school, what we've always done. So if we're going to do this and we're going to put 6% up there and 3% here, that's normal, how it's always been done. There, you're done, right? And then when somebody calls you for the, what are you guys offering? You say 3% old school style, and you shoot them off the form that you've already got ready. Okay. Now, what Natalie had, she had a seller who was offering either, let's say, 5% if he got full price and 4% if he got under that. Okay. So let's say Natalie was getting 2% here on her side. So if it was 4 or 5, you can't do 4-5 on here, right? So this is only what the seller is paying us, the listing broker, which is always going to be us if you're filling out this form. This is only what the seller's paying you here if they're doing something variable. If they're doing old school 5 or 6%, great. Then put 5 or 6%. If they're doing something variable, but yours isn't variable, but the buyer's agent is variable, or they're not sure what they're going to pay the buyer's agent now that this new law came into effect, put what you're getting here. And then on 10B, what they're offering the other agent. Okay. And if it's something variable, put seller authorized broker to offer compensation to buyer's broker from seller in the amount of blank, put see additional terms if it's variable. Okay. And then come down to additional terms and you can write a book down here, write whatever you want, but make sure it says with a full price offer, seller offers buyer's broker 3%. If under full price, seller offers buyer's broker 2%. Okay. And
Ryan,
that's exactly what you'll put on the form to the buyer's broker, but you'll use the seller to buyer broker one that I was about to show you down here. Let's go down here. Hold Hold questions. Compensation agreement, seller to buyer's broker. The seller is going to pay them directly here. Okay. Everybody got, oh gosh, I stopped presenting. Sorry. I switch out in and out of tabs and it stopped presenting. Okay. This is the one, the seller to buyer's broker. The seller is going to pay them directly. And that's where you'll come in here and say, and you do the other terms. You'll do see additional terms, see other terms, and you'll put 3% for the full price offer, 2% less than full price. Okay. Does everybody get that? Can I get some head nods out there if you get it?
I have a question about, I'm sorry. So that form that you're having right now on the screen is what we need to get filled out for current listings that the sellers are offering compensation to the buyer's broker.
Yes. Yes. If they're paying you a set amount and then offering them a different amount, or not just a different amount, but a variable amount or anything where they pay them where they want to pay. If they say, and this is what Hearst said, he's a negotiator, he's a wheeler dealer, and it's $1 million+ house. And he said, I want to decide what I pay them based on their offer. So that's what she's leaving open here. Okay.
Okay. So variable means if I have a house listed for 500, the seller said, I will pay 6% if I get full price.
Okay. Yep.
And then if I get 300,000, then I will only pay 1%. That's what variable
Perfect.
stands
Perfect.
for.
But yours isn't variable. Yours is 3% no matter what. The other side is variable.
Okay.
Okay. You can make yours variable too by using the additional terms on there, but typically it's going to be, I'm listing it, I'm getting 3%. Let's see how good this buyer's broker is, what kind of offer they bring. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Ryan, what is aside from that form, if it's never mind. Sorry, you answered my question earlier.
Okay.
Second guessing myself here.
You tend to do that, Alice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tariq, if you had a question, I just lost you. If you don't, then
Yeah, actually, I did, Ryan. Actually, it was not regarding this. It was way back before
okay.
about the fees that you're charging. Like, if you did the termination on, like, if I did a buyer broker agreement and I had a termination fee of $1,000, so FRI will take 10% of that 1,000.
Correct.
Okay, and also the 350, the fee that FRI takes. Can they write a check to me 350 and I pay FRI the 350, or it has to be written out to FRI to check?
You cannot take anything directly.
Okay. So it has to be written out to FRI.
You cannot give any kind of advice directly. If somebody takes you out for a cup of coffee, yes. Okay. But
Okay.
if to pick your brain about real estate, that's perfectly fine. But if
Gotcha.
if you take any kind of payment, you cannot take it directly.
I got you. I missed the first 10 minutes of the call. Did you already go over the FRI's buyer broker agreement form?
I've done that in the last 3 meetings. All we added to it was where they can click a box to not show properties, where you can have them click a box if they don't want to see properties where they have to come out of pocket to pay your commission.
I got you. And I have to have yours, not the one that NIR.
Yeah,
so I already
ours
had
is the same one. It just added that box, and we took out arbitration, and that is important to us. We do not want to deal with arbitration on these.
Okay.
We want regular lawsuits where they have to pay if they have a frivolous lawsuit. The loser has to pay.
I got. Okay, so definitely get yours signed instead of the ones I have already.
Yes, we made them fillable. They're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. George.
Yes, Ryan, back to the buyer's brokers agreement. We're talking your percentage because we were talking about business deal. Can we in the other say plus new build bonus of like $10,000 and then make a business decision not to collect that if the new build is not offering, or it's a $2,000 or $3,000 deal? Same as that we don't have to take the 3%, we can take the 2.5%.
You can do that. And what I recommend for that, I think you're going to see bonuses go away, George. Honestly, I hope you see just a click up in what they're offering. because a lot of people aren't going to have that, because a lot of your buyer broker agreements are going to start off looking for, you've had this before, they look for regular houses and then they decide new builds, right?
Right.
So, but some people are going to come to you right off the bat and say, I want a new build. But there is a modification to that, and that is part of what that is. Oh gosh, hold on a second. That is a modification. And part of what that is, the new forms here, buyer brokerage agreement, modification to buyer brokerage agreement. This is where you can change the compensation and add 3% plus $10,000.
Okay.
So,
But it could be, but you could do it in either place. It's a business decision on your part.
yeah, you can always take less. You can always take less than what you put on there. If you guys want to put $1 million on every one of these and the buyer will sign it, you can always take, $5,000. You always take less. You can never, ever, ever take more. Broker may not receive compensation from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed to with customer. They
Okay.
put that bold on every single form. All
I
right.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet, sir. Jody Richards. Jody, you might be on mute. There you go.
Okay. So a couple instances where the buyer has offered full price. If you have a variable commission and then the appraisal comes in low, which it frequently does, even though they offer full price, what's that going to do with the variable commission? I'm expecting sellers are going to be aggravated and they're going to think they should pay the lower amount even though the buyer offered them full price.
Well, maybe there's a way we can word that that's better. That's done. I mean, it depends on the legalese. If the property sells for full price, is it different than if the property is contracted for full price?
Right.
So you might want to put that in there. Say, 3% of the property is contracted at full price, 2% if it's contracted below full price.
Okay.
Because then contracted is what it's contracted for.
Okay.
If property sells for full price, 3%. If property sells for under full price, 2.5%, then what it actually sells for, which would be under full price, would be the difference. That would be what would be the determining factor.
Okay, so you have to be careful of your wording.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what's going to happen is you guys would probably take less money because you don't want to argue with your customer.
Okay.
I mean, you guys do it. You guys buy washers and dryers all the time. It's not your fault. So probably. I hope that answers your question. CJ. CJ, you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
There we go. You hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now, just to make sure I understand and also figure out which one you want us to prefer us to do. And this is on the listing agreement under 8 for the compensation. So if I put 3% in A, that means, of course, the seller will compensate me 3% for listing the house and selling it. Now, if they want to compensate the buyer's broker and or agent, then if we click A and put 3% there, we need to put 6% up there under A for our commission.
Or you're working for free. Yep.
Okay. But if we don't choose A, but we choose B and put 3% there, then they get 3% and we get 3%, correct?
Yes, but there'd be no, I mean, unless there's some reason the seller wants to do it that way, there'd be no reason to do it. They would just do 6% total and let you give the 3%.
Okay. Now,
but if that's the way they want to do it, that's the way they want to do it. But you wouldn't do that unless there's a reason to do that.
All right. If they did do that, so that means the seller will pay for it, does that payment come out at closing?
Yeah, it's going to look just like it always has.
All right. Now, the only reason why I was asking that is because some realtors may come out there and start saying, well, I only charge 3%. And we're going to say, well, I charge 6%, but that 3%. So I just don't know marketing wise, if it's better to go out when our customers, our clients are just dabbing in and trying to find out, well, what do you pay for compensation? What do you charge? Should we say 3% and then discuss remaining later? And then I'm just trying to figure out what's the reason for B, and is it better to use B instead of A and 10? That's all.
Well, what do you do when somebody asks you about listing their house and you say, oh, I do it for 6%, but I'll do it for 5% for you guys because George sent you. And they say, well, I got a guy doing it for 3%. What do you say? Well, what is he paying the other side? That's what the first thing I would ask. What is he paying? right?
Yeah, in
they
the old
say-
days, you wouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
But they would say, I would still want to know, like, I'd still want to know, oh, well, he's giving them only 0.5% or, whatever. I said, well, nobody's going to look at it. Just the conversations you would have with people. But if somebody says, if I tell them I'll do it for 5 because you guys were referred by so-and-so, and they say, well, CJ's going to do it for 3. I'd say, well, what's CJ paying the buyer side? And they'll say, well, nothing. We don't know, or we're going to negotiate that when the contracts come in. I say, well, then he's doing it for more than 5 because nobody's going to put a contract in for less than 2%.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it's just conversations you got to have. If somebody wants to market themselves like that, I don't know how gullible the seller would have to be. Eventually, they're going to figure it out that they're not offering anything to the other side, or they're going to, if it's a good way to get in the door and sit down with them and say, oh, well, yeah, I work for 3%, but we got to offer something to the other side. At least you got it at the table with them.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is getting to the table.
Well, there you go. Then say you work for 3% because you do.
Okay. All right. And again, I just didn't know which way you all preferred it, whether to put the 6% number 8 or divide it out.
If you're a salesperson, I got some ex timeshare people and stuff on here. If you're a salesperson and you just want to get at the table with somebody and you can sell them, right? And say, oh yeah, I do work for 3%. And then, if we want George Lumen to bring us a client, we're going to have to offer him something, so because other people are out there offering 2.5% and 3%. So let's see if we can't get at least 2% for the other side. And I'll tell you what I'll do, guys. I'll even take 2.5%.
Right. Okay. All right. That's all. Thanks.
Vivian. Vivian, she's no longer with us.
My hand back down, sorry.
Well, there she is. Okay. Any other questions on this stuff, guys? Let's see. Let me check the chat. Oh gosh. Sorry. Any active listing? I know what you're asking about that compensation disclosure, Patricia. I thought the current listing agreement we have is valid until expired. It completely is. This is not changing anything. It's just letting them know if it's currently listed, active listing right now, but not done. Just send them the form. That's all. You don't even have to just tell them this is a form I have to send out. Jackie Martin Rodriguez, just so I'm clear on the contract, the example seller's concession of 3% toward agent's commission, you can put that on the contract. You can put seller's concession of 3% goes towards the buyer brokerage compensation. You can put that on a contract now. Courtney Smith, if we charge a retainer, how is that payable? Does it? Yes, you've heard the answer by now. It's payable to FRI and we keep 10%. I was going to say also on referrals and rentals, we keep 10%, no transaction fee. We keep 10% up to the transaction fee that you have on your program. So if you get $1,000 referral or rental fee or retainer, we're going to keep $100 of that $1,000. If you get a $5,000 referral fee, we only keep $350 or $175, whatever program on. We don't take $500. We only take 10% up to whatever your program is. I think you're covering this, but is there a form for seller to buyer broker in addition to the form for seller broker? Yes. Do we need to execute buyer brokerage agreement for contracts that are currently pending? Absolutely not. So this form should be signed with the listing agreement if the seller is compensating the buyer broker. Well, we have a copy to send buyers brokers. Yes. If the seller is compensating them, absolutely. Great question, Lori. That's the same thing I said for the other thing. If you're a listing agent and you're worth your salt right now, you'll have these forms filled out for people who are going to go look at the property so they don't have to generate them. Just generate a bunch of them and have them ready to send out. Or just generate one, have it signed and ready to shoot out. You can send the same one to everybody. In fact, you can leave their brokerage blank because you're offering the same to every broker. You won't fill in the broker. You won't fill out the buyer. You just fill out the 2.5%, 3% or whatever it is and send it out. That's for any listing that you're going to get. That's like an old school listing of 6% and 3% or 5.5 or 5, 2.5, whatever it is. And as always, you can have a 6% where you keep 4 and they get 2, whatever your seller will agree to. All of that, just have whatever you're offering them on that form and ready to go. Will you add a comp agreement seller to buyer? Do not put it on MLS. Do not put it as an attachment on the MLS. You cannot do that. Nothing can be attached to the MLS that says what you're offering. Will you add a compensation agreement seller to buyer brokerage without FRI in the buyer brokerage slot? Compensation agreement seller to buyer brokerage without FRI in the buyer brokerage slot. If we have that, we'll fix it. It shouldn't be in there. We should not have that in there. I don't, if it is, we'll take it out. Maria, I have 2 vacant land listings at the moment that were made more than 3 months ago. Do I have to modify those listings and send them to the sellers again? No, Maria, you're just sending them that compensation thing that they don't even sign. Just make sure you email it to them and say, hey, this is the new law. I just wanted to make sure you guys have this, or just don't say anything. Tariq, question.
Yes, Ryan, I just had just a little confused. So am I using the modification to exclusive buyer brokerage agreement / showing agreement, or am I going to use the one that you have, the other one, the exclusive buyer broker agreement, from the one that you have?
You're only if you modify it. The exclusive buyer brokerage agreement is different. That's the actual agreement, and this is only for modifying it. In case you get a commission, or somebody offers you a bonus, or somebody, or they want to terminate. If they want to terminate early, this is your modification. This is the way to do it. You see on this form, termination date will be today.
Okay.
You know, if somebody calls you and says, I don't want to work with you anymore.
And the person, like the for number A, you have purchase or exchange. I'll put select one. You put 3% and plus the 350, just to confirm on that, right? Like you put 3
on the regular buyer brokerage agreement. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Yeah, the one that right here at the end of the line that says, this is the one you would use, 3% plus 350.
Gotcha.
All right.
Thanks.
You can see my cursor on there. Wayne.
Hey, Ryan. Quick question, and this is not about the forms. This is about listings in the MLS. This was discussed a couple of weeks ago. Can we put under realtor remarks, buyers, agents, welcome? Nothing else but that.
That's a great question. I don't think so. I wouldn't mess with this, guys, right now. Wait till things cool off a little bit. I would not mess with it right now. Everybody's going to be all over this stuff. I think that is telling people that you're offering compensation. And Kathy's got a question in chat. You can put it absolutely anywhere that's not related to the MLS, and you cannot link from the MLS to it. So Wayne, I think that's shaky ground. I mean, it's a good question. It's a great question. Can you put seller motivated? I don't know if, I think yes, obviously for that, but that's less direct. You can't put seller, you can't even hint about compensation. You can't put seller 3% motivated to sell this property. You can't do anything like that. That sounds genius, but you can't do it. So I don't know. I wouldn't do that at this point. I think, guys, this stuff is going to cool down over time. I'm not where they're going to let you break the rules, but it's just going to cool down.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. There's lots of questions too. What's the enforcement body of this and all that stuff? It's MLS. Who's checking our paperwork and doing all that stuff? Right now, we do have to comply with MLS. When we get audited, they do see what's been on the MLS to make sure we used all the right forms and did all that kind of stuff. So they use that stuff. That's why anything that's on the MLS we have to have paperwork for it. Nick.
Hey, if I'm working with a buyer and I reach out to the listing agent and I get that compensation agreement, it has what I need on it. Am I also needing to spell out in the contract that let's just say I'm not getting anything else. I just offer full price full price. I can get that compensation agreement, and that's just attach that, and that's all I need.
You don't even have to attach that. It's going to be the same thing. That's just old school. You're just going to have it. You don't even need to send it to the title company unless they ask for it. You tell them they're going to send you the same thing. Hey, what's the compensation on this? They're going to send that to you and to the listing agent to make sure there's not a conflict, to get the answer, make sure there's not a conflict. And you're going to say, they're paying me 3% on this. And if there's ever a problem, the title person is going to say, Nick, just so you know, Christina says she's only paying you 2.5%. You're going to say, I got this signed form, and you're going to send them the signed form. So it's just something you hold in your pocket. Now, we had Paul on the other day from Samaritan Group, Mortgage, and mortgage companies are going to want to see your buyer brokerage agreement, regardless of whether it's covered in there or not. Everybody's going to want to see that, and you can certainly share stuff with mortgage companies and stuff like that. And you can share it with the title company if you want, Nick, but you really only have to if there's a problem.
Okay. And all right. So what is the event that would happen in order for me to need to have the compensation agreement from broker to broker or versus seller to broker. I guess what's the difference between those two forms? I think you were talking about it, but I just missed it. But why would I need to fill out that? Is it only when I don't have that compensation agreement that's already been, provided by the listing agent?
No. So sometimes, the new listing agreement, it has a 10A and a 10B. A 10A is old school broker to broker where I charge 6% and I give you 3.
Okay.
And B is for that special case I was talking about where the seller says, yeah, I'm up to date on the new law. I want to negotiate this with the buyer's agent. I'll pay him something, but let's see how good the offer is first. You've dealt with these kind of people, Nick. You've done commercial and everything else.
Yeah.
Let's see how good the offer is first before I decide what I'm going to pay him. So that's called like a variable one, and that's going to be a 10B. You're going to click that, and then you're going to
Okay, so that's
but you
not
do
for
need to
buying.
commit to something so you can
This is
share
something
that.
that I'll be filling out when I'm a listing agent, then, not necessarily on the buy side.
Oh, a completely listing agent. Yeah. So they'll tell
Yeah.
you. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is when you do have a listing, you'll have one of those forms. I'm asking you as a professional courtesy to have ready for the other side.
Sure.
I would like for you to have ready to shoot off to anybody who asks a form showing what, because you have a listing, Nick, everybody's going to ask you what you're paying right before they go look at it. And you're going to tell them and you'll say, yeah, and I'll just shoot you I can text it to you. I can text you this, right?
Okay, I get it. Thank you very much.
And if you're on the buyer side, you don't even need to sign the form or anything unless you have a deal, because you've got it signed by the listing agent or the seller, and you've got it in your pocket in case you ever need it. And then you can sign it later. All right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You bet. Christina.
Yeah, just more clarification on that. I'm just looking in reference, because you're saying there's a form for seller to buyer broker and a form for seller broker to buyer broker, right? I'm just looking in reference and I just see the one. So I don't know if I'm understanding.
Ask me that again. I'm sorry.
So in terms of the forms for compensation, seller to buyer's broker or seller broker to buyer's broker, you said there's a form for each of those scenarios, right?
Yes. Here and here.
Okay, so I'm just seeing, okay, show me. So which one is it? I'm in reference. I see the, which one is it?
The one modification to compensation agreement. I'm sorry. No, compensation agreement, seller to buyer broker, compensation agreement, seller's broker to buyer's broker. Seller's broker to buyer's broker has been what we've been doing the whole time. That's
Okay.
With 6% and offering you 3% in MLS all this time. The other
Okay,
one is
so-
that the seller's going to want to negotiate it and pay it directly.
Okay, so compensation agreement, seller to buyer's broker, and then if they're doing it seller directly to me, then it's the modification. I will do the compensation and then the modification to compensation.
Why would you modify it if the seller is doing direct? This will also be the seller to buyer broker also will be if they weren't offering anything and you say, well, I got a full price offer, but if they'll give me 2 or 3%, then they'll do a seller to buyer broker agreement. Okay, so that's different too. But why would you modify?
No, I'm trying to figure out which forms are which. I hear what you're saying. I'm just not following.
Okay,
Like I see
so
I see
when
the
you have-
compensation agreement, seller to buyer's broker. I don't see one seller to seller without the broker involved to buyer's broker.
It's
So you're
on
saying
there.
that's compensation agreement. Got it. Okay, I see it. Got it.
It's on there. Yeah. If you look at my screen that I'm sharing, you can see it on there.
Yep. Okay.
Are they in the same order for you, by the way? Because I moved them around on here. I don't know if I moved them for everybody or just for me.
Mine appears to be in the same order.
Okay, I moved them for everybody then. All right. Okay. Next, sorry, I can't see the questions. John. Might be on mute, John. All right, I got a question in chat while waiting on John.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yes, sir, I can now.
Okay, thank you. And you pretty much explained this. I have a situation where I'm coming up where I'm probably going to write an offer next week. And previously, the seller had in that they were paying 3%. This is going to be a cash deal. But if I put that they will compensate basically commission for 3% to Florida Realty Investments in the contract, I do not have to have the seller's broker or the seller sign the commission form Or
No, that'll be fine for that. I prefer you use a commission form, but that'll be fine for that.
Okay.
Guys, the commission forms are not required by law. They're just required to get you paid.
Right.
So
Yeah, I've used them before in other cases, and that I just wanted to make sure of that. Thank you.
you bet. But you do. I would go ahead and get that signed before you send the offer. If it's old school, it was offered in MLS and then it disappeared. Make sure it didn't change because somebody might have
Yes.
modified it.
Yes,
So
that's
make
what
sure-
it was. It was offered at 3% when they could put it in the MLS, and now, of course, that's gone. So,
Okay. All right. What other questions do you guys have? Before we go, I just wanted to do this. Hold on one second. I've got some more people here. Pre-touring and showing form signed, even though we have no. BBA is good. BBA is perfect. BBA is the Cadillac of this deal. The other ones are weaker. Showing form is okay. It's pretty strong. The pre-touring is very, very weak, but it does cover the requirement to have something signed before you show. But any of them stand on their own except for the pre-touring. Marge, is there any form that I need, Fiamma, to complete before an open house for my listing and other agents' listing? No, you can show your own open house. If you're going to take people to other people's open houses, then you need to go. You need to have something signed. But if you're showing your own open house, that's perfectly fine. They come in unaccompanied, that's perfectly fine. Darialva. Darialva, if you're trying to talk, you're on mute. I'll answer another question real quick. Kedima, do I need my current seller to sign another updated listing? Absolutely not. Old version is good enough. You need to start using the new listing agreement if you have a new listing. But if you already have a listing, guys, you're good to go. And certainly anything under contract is already golden, good to go under the old rules. Darialva, I don't know if you're trying to talk, but if you do, you're on mute. Christina. Darialva, I'll come back to you. Christina.
Okay, so you're saying gold standard, if I'm showing 10 properties, I'm contacting these people just to find out what, if any, compensation is being offered. And ideally, I'm going to want to have a compensation agreement prior to going. That's what you're suggesting, right?
Well, if they give it to you in writing, if you texted me about my list, tell me about your listing there, how's the roof? What's the AC like? And what are you offering? I'll say, the roof is this, the AC is this, and we're offering 2.5%. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine to get going, to get started. But I also will say, you say, well, they're really interested. I want to send an offer over at around 4:00. Shoot me that compensation agreement if you don't mind.
Okay, and then we can show our own listings. I mean, obviously, I'm probably at least going to aim for having at least a showing agreement before I'm showing my own listings. But technically, do we need to have any of these documents signed for if somebody's like, hey, I just want to come by your house?
Yeah, if it's your own place, the touring agreement is fine. But I would have them sign something.
Okay.
But not an open house.
Okay.
They're already in there. Sean.
Did you say all these forms are uploaded in Form Simplicity?
Not yet. We're going to put ours in Transaction Desk and Form Simplicity, but right now we just have them on Paperless Pipeline as fillable PDFs. So I've sent them all to you. So you've all got them right there in your computer. Yeah. Save them there and be ready to fire them off all the time. Darialva, I'm going to try you again.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I was kicked out. I read somewhere that we don't have to apply all this for vacant land. And as I do a lot of vacant land, and just to make sure, because the commissions are gone on vacant land also. So should I use BBAs and compensations to vacant land also or not?
Yes. Yeah. If it's in MLS, you need to do it.
Okay.
If
perfect.
It's in MLS. If it's not in MLS, then you don't.
Okay. So vacant land applies everything that we are discussing.
Everything you see on there is that. It's not required for leasing right now, but it's required for everything, all sales.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, you bet. Melissa.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have a question. We've just been going through a lot of forms and I kind of got confused. If I wanted to take my client to an open house, which is the form I have to have signed with them?
You can do anything for open houses. You can do any of the three. Buyer brokerage agreement is the strongest one. Showing agreement is the next one. And you can go ahead and write the four. If they only want to look at open houses and you're going to take them to 3 this weekend, then you can do a showing agreement for those 3 properties, or you can do a pre-touring agreement for a couple of days or whatever you want. The pre-touring agreement is the weakest one. It does not protect you. If they go back on Monday and talk to the listing agent, they saw their card in the open house, or they met the listing agent and got her number or got her card or his card, and they can contact them on Monday and deal directly with them and cut you out. They cannot do that with the showing agreement or the buyer brokerage agreement.
Okay, perfect. And I have a second question, if it's okay. I have a buyer who saw a home before these new rules came into effect.
Yes.
And at the time she had 3% commission. So now if I call her back and I put the agreement through, and she comes back and says, okay, we're not offering 3%, we're offering 2.5%. I use the modification to compensation agreement at that point to modify my commission if I wanted to accept that 2.5 versus 3.
No, you don't have to modify to take less. You have to modify if you get offered more, you have to modify. If you take less, you do not have to modify. You just say, buyer, I know we agreed to 3%, but you know what? You've been great this whole time, and they're only offering 2.5. I'm not going to pursue you for that 0.5%.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Next question. I mean, you don't have to make it sound nice like that. You can just not say anything, but I think you should always take credit when you're giving away money. Next question is Elsa. I have a non-representative buyer call for the listing property directly and would like to make an offer. Do I need to ask him to sign the BBA? No, because you're covered with the a call for the listing property directly. Would like to make it up. You can get a touring agreement. You can do the touring agreement. You can do whatever. Have something signed by them to show them the property, but then you're going to write the contract and you're going to represent them. So do that. I prefer the BBA because now they can't come into right before you say, oh, you liked it, let's write an offer. And they say, well, my cousin's a realtor. So I would prefer that you get the BBA signed. I hope that answers your question. But the BBA or the showing form is great. But every one of you guys has shown something to somebody and been ready to, oh, they love it, let's write a contract. And they say, oh, well, my brother-in-law is a realtor. He doesn't really practice much, but I'll have him write the contract. Right? Everybody, has that ever happened to anybody? You nod your head if that's ever happened to you. Yeah. Any other questions? Can I advertise commission on for sale sign? I am not sure about that. I will check on that. People are trying to scare everybody. Guys, the rule is for MLS. You can leave it on the counter in the thing. You can talk about it at the thing. I don't see why you couldn't. But they're trying to scare people.
I sat in on a meeting that said you could put it in the yard. I don't know
Yeah,
that I would do that, but I did hear that at a meeting I sat in on.
Yeah, I think you can. It's an MLS rule. So if you want to offer, I think, yeah, it's not FREC or DBP. It's nothing to do with your license. It has nothing to do with anything else. Like I told you guys before, you can, paint it on your belly and run around the street if you want. You wear a T-shirt, you do a hat, whatever you want. There's no rules at all, except for MLS. Anything related to MLS or linked to MLS. All right. Any other questions before we go? Those of you who do not feel great about it, I am certain we will be talking about this again to some degree on Wednesday. I'll get to you in just a second, Carol. The reason for this meeting was I didn't want to do this on a Friday morning, but this is important for the timing. This stuff is happening now. This stuff is happening now. You guys are showing properties this weekend. I want to make sure you're talking to listing agents and getting the commission agreements, compensation agreements, and all that stuff. Everything that you need is getting done before you start showing properties. I don't want you guys to cry that you're losing deals or that you lost a deal because you didn't use the right form or getting in trouble for not using. Well, right now you can't get in trouble for not using the buyer brokerage agreement, but go ahead and get using them and protecting yourself. Okay. Everything, they've already dropped the compensation off the MLS. That kind of set these wheels in motion where you guys need to make sure you're of what you're getting paid and that you're getting paid. Okay. to enforce the things that we're going to have to enforce, you have to have that buyer brokerage agreement or the showing agreement that say how much you're getting paid. Okay. Any questions on that before I call on Carol? Carol.
I listened to Florida Realtors presentation from Joanna, who's the VP for the legal, and also with Pat Ketchum. And it appears that you can have the commission, if you have a listing, you can have the commission on the brokerage website for the listings. So is that something that you plan to implement later on down the line?
You guys can do that on your own. So yes, anybody, when I talk about brokers, they're talking about all of us. So you guys can have your own, all of your own listings and all that stuff. Yes, absolutely. Anywhere that someone might look for that property, you can have that, except on, it's not going to be on Zillow. Zillow's an IDX feed from the MLS. You can't, it's not going to be anywhere like that. So it's going to have to be, and agents who are interested are going to call you. So yes, you can have it on websites. Somebody said you can't have it on social media. I completely disagree with that. I have not seen anything that says that. Somebody said they saw that. Might have been a misunderstanding. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. I don't know how your social media is linked to MLS at all. So I don't know why it can't be on your social media. So advertise it wherever you want, except on MLS. And don't do, like I saw a funny thing where somebody had it mowed into the yard 3% into the aerial and wanted to put that on their photos on MLS. You can't do that either. No pictures of anything. Paint it on the wall inside and take a picture. Nothing like that. So cannot be in the pictures. It cannot be anywhere, but you can advertise it anywhere, any other way you want. Any other questions or comments? I want to say to you guys one more time, listing agents, go ahead and get these compensation forms filled out. Even if you have a current listing, because they're going to call on them, just like somebody just asked, it said it was 3%. And then I want to make sure they didn't change it in the last week before I was able to show it. So go ahead and get these, the cat is distracting. Go ahead and get these compensation agreements filled out and ready to shoot off to whomever. So just leave it blank, leave the buyer part blank. Obviously you won't know the buyer's name anyway, but leave the brokerage part blank, who we're paying other than your brokerage. Your brokerage, the compensation amount, and get them ready to fire out. Okay. And obviously the address of the property. All right. Because our agents are going to do it the best. Our agents are going to be the easiest to work with, and they're going to sell the most. So very proud of you guys. Thank you all for coming in today. If you guys have any other questions over the weekend, which I'm sure you will, which is part of why we're doing this, be sure to ask. And Kim.
Sorry, Ryan. It
Yes.
was an accident. Sorry.
Oh, you didn't mean to raise your hand.
No, I'm good. Sorry.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you all for coming, and we will see you next Wednesday. We'll probably go, I didn't want to tell you guys earlier, we'll probably do this again Wednesday. But I do want you guys to get started on this. And I'm sure you will have some questions and other stuff. But we will, we'll keep working through this, guys. Hey, it's an opportunity. Do not be depressed about this. You guys have always said, tell you guys this again, you guys have always said you want the riffraff out of the business. All the people don't know what they're doing and all this stuff. Well, here's your chance to prove that you're better, to prove that you're one who belongs. And as this goes down, and it's what we're thinking as a brokerage as well, as the market share we can get is expanding. The bigger piece, we can get a bigger piece of the pie now. And as interest rates drop, the pie is going to get bigger. The pie in the next year is going to get bigger than it has been, very contracted the last year or two. It's going to get bigger and bigger. And we're going to have a bigger and bigger piece of it if we're doing things the right way. Both you individually, us as a brokerage, everybody. So let's do things the right way, get on top of everything, and we're going to do great. This is an opportunity, it's a challenge, but an opportunity. All right. You guys have a good weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.